Once upon a time, there lived a very beautiful maiden in the bustling village of Obogo. Her name was Sandra. Sandra was the only child of Sikufele and his beautiful wife, Maria. Sikufele was the wealthiest man in Obogo village apart from the king. He had a very big farmland and had a lot of people working and earning a living in his farm business. Despite being a wealthy man, Sikufele was very kind-hearted. He was loved by everybody he came in contact with because of his kind nature. After the birth of Sandra, Maria, her mother, could no longer conceive. Maria and her husband tried all they could. They visited different herbalists both within and outside Obogo village, but still she could not conceive. They resigned to fate and concentrated on giving their best to raise Sandra. Sikufele was advised by his friends and family to take a new wife who would bear him more children, but he refused because he loved his wife Maria so much. "You need a son to inherit all your wealth when you are gone and dead," his friend Vunda advised him one day. "Bringing in another woman will cause trouble for my dearly beloved Maria. I cannot do that to a woman who has been through thick and thin with me," replied Sikufele, to the dismay of his friend. Sikufele's home was filled with a lot of domestic workers, so Sandra grew up in a lavish home filled with maids attending to her every whim. She did little or nothing at home. She was always served by the maids. Her parents gave her anything and everything she ever asked for. "She is all we've got," her mother would always say. Her parents thought they were giving her the best, but little did they know that they were putting her on the path of destruction. Sandra was growing into a very beautiful girl. She had beautiful eyeballs, a pointed nose, and a very captivating smile. She carried herself with effortless elegance and confidence. Her beauty was the talk of the town. She was the apple of her father's eyes. He bought her expensive clothes, bags, shoes, and jewelries. As the wealthiest man after the king, Sandra's father made sure she lacked absolutely nothing. She grew up believing she was entitled to anything she desired. Sandra, at 5 years old, already had no regards or respect for anybody. She would snap at the maids, demanding things be done her way and showing no gratitude for their efforts. Although her parents did not approve of her arrogance, they were caught between their love for their daughter and their frustration at her unruly behavior. They made excuses for her with the statement, "She is just a child. She doesn't know what she's doing. She will change with time." So they ignored her excuses and continued to pamper her. One fateful day, Sandra woke up in the morning and called Mulenga, one of the maids, to her room. "I want to have fish and shima for breakfast, and I need it in 15 minutes. Mulenga tried to explain to her that it would take longer than that because she still had to peel and fry the fish. But Sandra insisted that it must be ready and served within 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, Mulenga was not back with her order. Sandra went out to the kitchen to demand an explanation. She became angry when she saw Mulenga still peeling the fish. She poured the already peeled fish on the poor maid. "You are useless as your entire generation," she said to the maid, who was already crying. The incident drew Maria's attention and she went in to know what was wrong. "What is going on here?" Maria asked. "Mother, this good-for-nothing maid refused to serve me breakfast." Going down on her knees, Mulenga explained exactly what happened and how Sandra had emptied the fish on her. Maria apologized to her maid and asked her to go clean herself up because she was smelling of fish. Sandra began to cry. "Mother, why would you take sides with the maid over me? You should have asked her to apologize to me." Maria apologized to her daughter and gave her 10 shillings to get herself anything she desired. Sandra quickly wiped her tears, collected the money, and ran out happily. Maria smiled as she watched her daughter walk away. She is just a child. She will outgrow this behavior with time, she mumbles to herself. Obogu village was widely known for its great commercial activities. The biggest market, which was Siavonga, was located at the center of the village. Villagers converged at the Siavonga market every 4 days to carry out trading activities. This was where all the great farmers and hunters of the village got to sell their produce and bushmeat. Being the biggest merchant in Obogu village, Sandra's father owned the biggest store in the market. People came from both within the village and neighboring villages to buy goods from him. He was so popular that every meat buyer would want to buy meat from him. He was also a very kind person to everyone. On one fateful market day, Sandra went to her father's hut and pleaded with him to allow her to go to the market with him. I have a very important function to attend. I won't be going to the market with my sales workers today, so you cannot go, he replied to her. I can go with your sales workers, father. I am bored, she said with a sad look. Sikofele could not bear to see his daughter looking so sad, so he gave his permission. He then gathered his workers and gave them stern warning. My precious daughter will be going with you to the market today. Ensure she is comfortable. She must not return with any negative reports. Is that okay? Yes, they all replied. A few minutes later, they set out with Sandra, sitting in the cart with bags of meat. They got to the market, and as they set up their store, Sandra sat down lazily, her eyes rolling with disdain at the bustling market scene. Soon, a middle-aged woman approached her. Her face was lined with years of hard work under the sun. Good morning here. I would like to buy meat. How much is this bag end? The woman stopped talking when she noticed Sandra's presence. With a warm smile, she said, Ah, you must be Sandra, the one and only beautiful daughter of the great Sikofele, the meat merchant. You are so beautiful. Can you be my daughter-in-law? The woman said jokingly. Sandra's face twisted with disgust at the thought of being associated with someone so common. How dare you ask me be your daughter-in-law? She sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. I would never be related to someone like you. You look poor and hungry. The woman's smile faded, hurt evident in her eyes. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, but she remained composed. She quickly turned back to the sales workers, ignoring the insults. Sir, I would like to purchase some meat, please. The head of the workers completed the transaction with the woman, exchanging the bags of fish for her payment. Moving close to her and speaking with a low voice, he apologized to the woman and begged her to ignore Sandra's behavior. The woman thanked him and walked away. Sandra continued to be rude to everybody at the slightest opportunity she got. She didn't associate with anybody that looked poor to her. I should not be seen with people like you. You are not in my class, she once told a young man who told her he liked her and wanted to marry her. As beautiful as Sandra was, nobody wanted to be her friend. They only admired her from a distance but didn't want to be insulted by coming close to her. But surprisingly, Sandra had one best friend, a friend she loved so dearly. The only person Sandra loved apart from her parents. Chipego was the only friend Sandra had. She was the daughter of Chisanga, Maria's friend. Maria and Chisanga had been friends right from childhood. Their friendship continued to grow till they got married. But unlike Maria, who had only Sandra, Chisanga had three more children. With Chipego being the youngest and only daughter. She named her Chipego, My Worth Has Arrived, because things turned good for her immediately she was conceived, and she had been making progress ever since. Sandra and Chipego became friends as a result of their parents' frequent visits to each other's houses. They visited each other, sometimes in company of their daughters. Initially, Sandra was repulsive to Chipego's friendship gestures, but she gave in when she noticed Chipego was also from a very classy family, and she was a classy maiden and of course from a wealthy home too. Although Sandra and Chipego became close friends and were often in each other's company, the two maidens were as different as day and night. Unlike Sandra, who was known far and wide for her arrogant behavior and prideful ways, her friend Chipego was admired for her kind heart and respectful nature. Chipego demonstrated empathy, compassion, and generosity towards others. She had gone out of her way on several occasions to help those in need. One of her desires was to make positive difference in the life of others. Knowing the type of person Sandra was, Chipego vowed to do her best to influence her friends positively. One sunny afternoon, as the two friends strolled through the village, they came across an old woman struggling to carry a heavy load of firewood on her frail shoulders. Chipego's compassionate heart stared at the sight. "Let's help this old woman. This firewood is obviously too heavy for her," she said. Sandra frowned at the idea of helping. "Why waste our time on an old woman? Are we her servants?" Sandra sneered. "Let her fend for herself. Besides, I can't allow my beautiful hands touch that dirty firewood." But Chipego's eyes were filled with empathy as she approached the struggling woman. "May I help you, Mom?" she asked respectfully. The old woman's face lit up with gratitude as Chipego took the heavy bundle of firewood from her. Together, they began the journey to the woman's humble home, with Sandra following furiously from a distance. As they reached the old woman's home, Chipego gently placed the firewood by her doorstep, earning a warm smile in return. Grateful for her assistance, the old woman blessed her with words of wisdom and kindness. "You are such a kind maiden. May the gods of our land bless and decorate you. May you sit among kings, queens, and people that matter. Go well, my child," she prayed. Chipego thanked her and hurriedly left to join Sandra, who was still angry. "It is good to help people in need, Sandra. Anybody could have been in that position. We are only fortunate to have been born into such rich families, but that doesn't make other people less humans," Chipego advised. Sandra shrugged but didn't utter a word, so they continued moving in silence. "Sandra, with the way you are going, I hope you are able to get a man to marry you. I saw Clement, the hunter's son, yesterday, and he told me how you humiliated him simply because he told you he would like to marry you. You have turned down many suitors for reasons best known to you," Chipego said to her friend one day on their way to Sekufele's farm. "All those suitors I turned down are gold diggers. They want to reap where they didn't sow. They are very poor and have nothing to offer me," Sandra replied irritably. "They might not be wealthy today, but they are hardworking. With time, the wealth will come. Besides, your father is the wealthiest man in Obogo village. It might be difficult finding a wealthy young man to marry," Chipego replied. Sandra paused and looked Chipego straight in the eyes. "The king is wealthier than my father, and he has a son who is away in the white man's land. I overheard my father telling my mother that the prince will soon be back to take a wife in preparation for the throne. So yes, you see, I will be right here, waiting for the prince," she ended with a smile. "You are the most beautiful maiden in Obogo village, Sandra. I know the prince will easily notice you, so I wish you luck, my dear friend," Chipego said. "Beautiful maidens of Obogo land," a voice said from behind as they were about to continue their journey. The two friends turned to see who it was. Standing in front of them was an averagely dressed but handsome young man whom they had never seen before. "How are you two beautiful maidens doing today?" I have been watching you two from a distance. My name is Patson, he introduced himself. Chipego also introduced herself and Sandra reluctantly did the same. Patson, with a warm smile, approached and nervously asked Sandra to be his friend, stating that he truly admired her. "You are certainly not talking to me, are you?" Sandra said, her eyes flickering with disdain at his simple attire. "Of course I am talking to you," he replied. "Take a look at my friend Chipego. She is an advocate of poor people like you. I am sure she would gladly accept to be your friend. As for me, you don't fit into the class of the man I want to be with," Sandra said rudely. "You could have politely turned down my request without saying those hurtful words to me," Patson replied her, hurt evidence in his eyes. Heartbroken but undiscouraged, Patson accepted Sandra's rejection. However, he then turned to Chipego, asking if they could be friends. Chipego, impressed by Patson's calmness and good looks, agreed without hesitation. Patson described his house to Chipego and she did the same. He then promised to see her again and left. As destined in 2 weeks, Chipego and Patson's friendship blossomed. They shared laughs, secrets, and dreams. The bond between Chipego and Patson deepened into love, their connection growing stronger with each passing day. Despite Sandra's rejection, Patson never harbored any resentment towards her. He respected the fact that Sandra was the friend of the most important woman in his life. Instead, he focused on nurturing his relationship with Chipego, appreciating her kindness and loyalty. One Sunday morning, Sandra dashed through the paths of Obogu village, her heart pounding with excitement and disbelief. She finally arrived at Chipego's house, breathless but eager to share her incredible encounter. "Chipego, Chipego, Chipego!" Sandra screamed her friend's name. Chipego ran out in fear. "What is it, Sandra? Are you okay? Is anything wrong?" she asked curiously, confusion written all over her face. "Nothing is wrong. I am just excited." "Guess what?" Sandra asked. "Start talking, Sandra. I can't guess," replied Chipego. Gasping for breath, Sandra began her narration. "Chipego, you won't believe what happened to me. I was passing by the palace a while ago. On my way to meet my mother at her friend's house, guess who I saw?" Chipego looked confused. Sandra ignored her and said, "The prince." Chipego's eyes widened in surprise. "Which prince?" she asked. "The only son of our great king, Misozi, of course. Lest I forget, the heir to the throne," Sandra added. Chipego was obviously not satisfied with the story yet, so she asked Sandra to tell her every single detail. "Well, he was coming out from the palace, followed by his guards. He approached me with such gentleness, introduced himself as Prince Misozi," Sandra continued. "He asked me my name, then he said he noticed me around the village and wanted to be my friend, and of course I said yes." Chipego's face lit up with genuine happiness for her friend. "Sandra, that's incredible. You have caught the eye of the prince himself. I am so happy for you," she wrapped Sandra in a warm embrace. "You deserve every bit of happiness, Sandra. The prince is lucky to have met the most beautiful maiden of this great kingdom." Sandra smiled with joy, grateful for her friend's support. "I couldn't believe it either. He was so friendly and nice. I feel like the luckiest girl in the village. Unlike you that decided to settle for Patson, a poor guy," she said with a mischievous look. "Sandra, Patson may not be rich, but he is the one I have chosen. He makes me happy and I will appreciate it if you respect that," Chipego replied. "Your wish," said Sandra without remorse. As theirs turned in 2 weeks, Sandra and Misozi's friendship blossomed. They fell in love with each other and became inseparable. Prince Misozi would always come out to meet Sandra under the big avocado tree close to the palace. The bond between them deepened with each day passing. One cool evening, they met as usual and decided to take a stroll. Prince Misozi told the guards to stay back. They went to the river in the village and sat in a bushy and secluded part of the river bank where villagers hardly went. It was cool everywhere and it was quiet. Soon they got carried away. One thing led to the other and right there they made love. I am so sorry, Sandra. I didn't mean for this to happen, Prince Misozi apologized. It's fine, my prince. I guess we both got carried away, replied Sandra. The prince stared at Sandra in disbelief. So you were a virgin as beautiful as you are? That's commendable and I love you even more, he said. Thank you, my prince. You are the first man ever in my life, Sandra replied, feeling shy. Prince Misozi held her hands, looking straight into her eyes. He said, I promise to love you till eternity. We have to go now. It's getting dark. So they left. I will see you soon, said the prince as they parted ways when they got to the palace. He went into the palace while Sandra continued her journey home, feeling very satisfied with her life at that moment. Sandra didn't discuss what happened with Chipego like she always would. She kept it to herself and smiled each time she remembered what transpired. Chipego, on the other hand, was invited by Patson to visit him in his hut. He went there one sunny afternoon and met Patson skillfully weaving baskets. You are welcome, my love. Please sit and give me a few minutes to finish up. This order is urgent, Patson pleaded. Chipego sat and watched Patson in admiration as he continued doing his job. What a hard-working man, she thought to herself. Patson hurriedly finished up and joined her. He offered her water. With a nervous excitement, he said, I want us to get married. Chipego, who was still drinking the water, stopped abruptly and stared at him. Her eyes softened and a smile graced her lips. Yes, I will marry you, Patson. I love you so much and I'm willing to spend eternity with you. But what? Asked Patson, looking worried. Patson, she said gently, your small heart and your occupation alone cannot sustain us. How much can you possibly make from carpentry that will be enough to raise a family? Patson listened keenly. I understand your concerns, Chipego, he replied, his voice steady. But I promise you this, I will build a bigger hut before our marriage rites, and I will work harder to provide for both of us. Moved by his sincerity, Chipego's heart soared with love for the handsome, steadfast carpenter. She nodded, placing her hand in his. I believe in you, Patson. I know your hard work will pay off one day. I also promise to support you in my own little way, she said with a gentle but reassuring voice. Patson gazed into Chipego's eyes and asked, when would be a suitable time for me to visit your parents and make my intentions known? I will speak with them and get back to you, she replied. Patson saw her off and returned to continue his work. That evening, Chipego and Sandra met and Chipego narrated what transpired between her and Patson to Sandra. You really want to settle down with a carpenter, right? What can he possibly offer you? Sandra asked, sounding irritated. Well, I chose happiness over wealth. Besides, my father promised to set up a business for me when I get married. With that, I will be able to support him, although I didn't tell Patson about it. Enjoy your carpenter then, while I become the queen of this great kingdom, replied Sandra with a sarcastic grin. Patson set out one fateful morning to see Chipego's parents and make his intentions known. After Chipego had informed her parents about him, he picked the finest basket and put some beans and maize in it as a gift to them. His heart raced as he approached Chipego's parents' home. He had rehearsed what he would say 1,000 times. Chipego's parents welcomed Patson warmly and offered him a seat. He dropped the basket he had come with. To what do we owe this visit? Mwenge, Chipego's father asked, looking straight into his eyes. This made him nervous. Thank you so much. My name is Patson. I found a very beautiful flower in your garden and I desire to pluck it. I have come to seek your permission to take Chipego as my wife, he recited very quickly. Mwenge smiled. Tell us about your parents and lineage, Patson, he asked, his tone gentle yet probing. My father is a hunter from Kabwe village, but my mother, though late, is from a village called Kapiri. I relocated back here in search of greener pastures, but my father is very much alive and would gladly come here to perform my marriage rites, he replied. Mwenge looked at him with keen interest as he spoke. He is good looking and sounds like a responsible and respectful young man from a good home, he thought to himself. After several minutes of discussion, Mwenge accepted Patson. Since my daughter loves you like she said, I do not have any objections. I will give you my blessings, but you will have to go and return with your kinsmen on a date that is suitable for you. Thank you so much for accepting me. I promise to take good care of your most precious daughter, Patson said. Mwenge then asked Chipego to prepare him food. She prepared chicken and vegetable soup, which Patson gladly ate. Grateful and relieved, Patson departed, his heart full with hope for the future. The next day, which was a market day, Patson took his baskets to the market to sell. He got to the market early, arranged his baskets nicely and set out for the day's business. Prince Misozi, followed by his guards, also went to the market for sightseeing. They were moving from store to store, full of smiles. He greeted the traders and wished them great sales. Meanwhile, two young peasants named Mule and Vincent, sent from a distant village called Kapuswe, also arrived at the Solwezi market. A wealthy merchant in Kapusu village needed meat in large quantities for commercial purposes. Since he could not get the needed quantity in his village, he decided to purchase from Sikufele, the father of Sandra, the great meat supplier. So he sent his peasants. Mule and Vincent had just completed their transactions with Sikufele's sales workers and were loading the bags of meat into the cart when suddenly Mule touched Vincent. Look, he said, pointing towards the direction. Is that not Isaac, disguised as a prince? Looking towards the direction he pointed, Mule said, that is not Isaac. He was about to continue arranging but decided to take a second look. It's him, he said, sounding very convinced, shock evident in his eyes. That is Isaac. What is he doing here? How did he get here? Vincent asked so many questions. His Majesty the King must hear about this, he said. We need to hurry, Vincent. I can't wait to break this news to our king. It will gladden his heart. They hurriedly arranged their purchased meat and left for their Kapuso village. 2 days later, Prince Misozi met Sandra under the mango tree as usual. They exchanged pleasantries. Prince Misozi noticed that Sandra wasn't looking too well. Her face was pale and drawn. Sandra, are you feeling unwell? He inquired gently. Sandra forced a weak smile. It's nothing, my prince. I am just a bit weak today, she replied, trying to brush off her discomfort. Not convinced by her response, Prince Misozi insisted, You don't seem yourself. Please tell me exactly what is wrong with you, he urged, his concern deepening. I feel very tired easily these days and I sleep a lot, Sandra replied. Then you should visit a medicine man. You might need to take some herbs, Prince Misozi said. Let's take a stroll. It might help you feel better, he added. As soon as Prince Misozi and Sandra left, 2 chiefs and 3 guards from Kapusu village arrived to the palace and demanded to see the king. They were ushered into the presence of King Mutakatifu of Obogu village. We bring you greetings from our king, His Royal Highness Mopafu from Kapuso village, said one of the chiefs, who seems to be the oldest. First of all, we would like to appreciate you for the friendly atmosphere you have created between Kapuso and Obogu village. May your reign be long, he prayed. Then he began to narrate the purpose of their visit. It was a very lengthy narration. Hours passed and tension mounted within the palace walls. Finally, the discussions concluded with the chief saying, "We decided that we must visit you first and make sure you are aware before we take any action. Because it is not right to just walk into your territory and carry out such an act without informing you." "You did the right thing, Chief," replied King Mutakatifu, trying to hide his true state of mind, but he could not hide for long. King Mutakatifu's anger flared and he thundered, "Bring Prince Misozi before me at once." The palace guards hurried to fulfill the king's command, but returned with the message that Prince Misozi was not in the palace. "Search for him and bring him to me at once," the king ordered. 2 guards went in search of him. They found him and Sandra at the stream in the village. "The king demands your presence immediately," said one of the guards. Prince Misozi immediately knew something was wrong. The king has never sent for him like this. What could be wrong? Am I safe? Many questions ran through his mind. What is going on in the palace? He asked the guards, but they didn't reply. He turned to Sandra. "I have to go now, my darling. Please ensure you visit the medicine man. I will see you again tomorrow," he told her. He ordered the guard who had been with him to take Sandra home and make sure she got home safely before he returned to the palace. He then followed the guards who had come to fetch him. On their way to the palace, Prince Misozi wondered why the king demanded his presence with so much urgency. He was really satisfied with his life at the moment and did not want anything to distract him. Nevertheless, he followed the guards quietly, hoping that all would be well. They got to the palace and went straight into the chambers where the king and the chiefs and guards from Kapuso village were waiting. "Your Majesty, you sent for me," he said, without noticing the presence of the visitors. King Mutakatifu looked at him straight in the eye, with so much anger and disdain. "Look at these people here. Do you know them?" he asked. Prince Misozi turned towards their direction. Immediately he saw them, he ran out of the chamber and was running towards the main exit of the palace. "Do not let him escape," thundered the king. The palace guards chased him and caught him just before he exited the palace compound. They dragged him back to the king. Prince Misozi went on his knees and began to cry. "Have mercy on me, O king," he said. "Start talking before I have your head brought to me in a tray," said the king, trying to control his temper. "Everything I told you was a lie," Misozi began. "I am not Misozi, neither am I a prince or of royal blood. My name is Isaac, son of Mr. Mbewe, the humble charcoal seller in Kapuso village. My late father Mbewe was a palace worker for several years. He loved the king Mupafu of Kapuso village so much. He ran errands like a little boy. He faithfully served the king until his last breath. After his passing, I thought the king would compensate me and my mother for the years of service my father rendered to him. But to my surprise, the king did nothing for us. We barely had food to eat because my mother made very little from her charcoal business. In order to help my mother, I took up odd jobs. I worked in people's farms and poultry, cleaning animal dungs. I helped people to move their goods from one part of the market to the other and earned very little from it. My mother and I continued to live from hand to mouth for some years until my mother became ill. The sickness was so severe that my mother was bedridden for months. The medicine men in the village could not detect the nature of her sickness. Then a friend told me about a great medicine man from another village who could cure my mother's illness, but I needed a huge sum of money for that and I could not afford it. I went to the king and pleaded with him to help me save my dying mother, but he turned deaf ears. Then I spoke with one of the chiefs and he agreed to give me some money, which he did. The money was, however, not enough. The chief himself appealed to the king on my behalf again. It was then the king gave me some money. When we got to the medicine man, he said it was too late, that we brought my mother a little too late. But he still tried to see if she could get well. We spent all the money and she still could not make it. At this point, Isaac, disguised as the prince, broke down and wept uncontrollably. The king was dumbfounded. Even the chiefs from Kapuso became very emotional. Isaac wiped his face with the back of his palm and continued with the confession. My mother's remains was brought back to Kapuso for burial, barely 2 weeks after the burial. The king invited me to the palace and asked me how and when I was going to start paying the money he lent me for my mother's treatment. I was shocked. I thought it was a gift. I begged him to give me time to raise the money, but after a month I still could not raise it as I had no stable source of income. He called me back to the palace and made me an offer which I could not reject because I had no choice. You will join us in the palace as one of the workers and work for the money you borrowed, he told me. I agreed. At least I could get food to eat at the palace. So I started working at the palace as one of the cleaners. But I harbored hatred towards the royal family ever since. I couldn't bear the thought of my father, who had dedicated his life to the kingdom, dying in poverty, and my mother also passing because the king wasn't human enough to give me money to save her. Every day I set my eyes on the king, I hated him even more. Driven by anger and thirst for revenge, I was waiting for the day and opportunity to avenge my parents' death. I never got the chance. The palace was filled with guards. I was about to give up on my quest for revenge when something happened. Chingola, our neighboring village, was attacked, leaving the village in chaos and its inhabitants either massacred or taken captive. The village was left completely empty. Then I came up with a plan. In the past, I had been monitoring the king and his household. I knew where he kept valuables and money. So I decided to steal what I felt was rightfully mine. One day, when the king was away, I sneaked into his safe and stole huge sums of money and some gold, with a few clothes carefully wrapped. I left the palace as though I was going on an errand. That was how I left Kapuso village, crossed several villages and found myself here. Then I found my way to the palace and lied to you, my lord, that I was the prince of Chingola land and the only survivor of the attack. After I narrated my fake story to you, my king, being the compassionate man that you are, you took me in. You gave me a place to stay and promised to help me. However, I didn't know you were going to do so much for me. Barely 1 week after, you called me to your chamber. I remember your exact words. Royalty remains royalty anytime and any day. I will give you the life befitting the status of the prince and give you personal guards too. I take you as my son henceforth. Although I didn't ask for that much, neither was I expecting it. It was too juicy for me to reject. So I accepted. Forgive me, my king. I am deeply sorry, Misozi concluded, feeling very guilty. Everywhere became quiet after Misozi's confession. It was as silent as the graveyard. His story really touched all present. He is right about our king. King Mupafu has never been a man of the people, said the elder that led the delegates. It is true you didn't ask for that much, but you got it courtesy of me, said a voice from behind. Everyone present turned to know who it was. Standing right there was Patson, the carpenter. Isaac, whose real name is now known. I didn't mean for this to end up this way, said Patson as he moved close to Isaac. Take a good look at me. Do you remember me? He asked. Looking very confused, Isaac stared at Patson for some seconds. I am not sure I have seen you before, replied Isaac with tears in his eyes. Father, I am back to take my rightful place, but before that I need to clear the air. People know me to be Patson, the carpenter who makes baskets. I chose that status for a reason. That is not who I really am. My name is Misozi, Prince Misozi, the real Prince Misozi, the only son of King Mutakatifu of Obogu village and heir apparent to the throne. Now, here is my story. My father sent words to me in London that it was time to return home, to understand the culture and tradition of our land, and also take a wife in preparation for the throne. I discussed my plans with my white friend Richard, and he advised me to disguise as a poor man so I could get a wife who would love me genuinely. I agreed to do that, but then I remembered I needed an occupation to disguise with. I decided I would not come straight to Obogo village, but stop by another village to learn a skill. That was what took me to Kapuso village. Upon my return from England, I pretended to be lost, and I was found by a man, the great hunter of Kapuso village, who took me in. I then discussed my intention to learn a craft with him. He was impressed and handed me over to his friend who was a carpenter. That was how I learned how to do carpentry and making baskets. I was at Kapuso village for 3 months. During this period, I followed my master to the market on several occasions. I had seen Isaac come to the market a couple of times. Facing Isaac, he said, "Isaac, I knew you as a palace worker back in Kapuso. Even though you don't recognize me, you even bought baskets from me one time." He then continued, "I was still at Kapuso village when the news broke out that Isaac, the palace worker, stole the king's money and valuables and left the kingdom. When I was ready to return, I followed peasants who came to buy goods at our most popular Obogo market. To my greatest surprise, I returned and saw him. I hid myself thinking he would recognize me. Upon inquiry from my father, he told me Isaac was the prince of Chingola who managed to escape the war. I knew it was a lie, but I pretended to believe the story because I needed someone to distract people's attention. Luckily for me, he claims to be Misozi, which happens to be my name too. It was easy for me too because I had been away for a very long time, so villagers couldn't easily recognize me. Even my father, the king, had to confirm through the birthmark on my thigh and the bracelet he gave me when I was leaving the kingdom. So I told my father to please give you the life of a prince without telling him who you truly are. Facing the king, he said, "Father, I am really sorry I put you through all this. You never liked my plan, but you played along. Thank you, Father." As Prince Misozi finished talking, the whole palace went silent again. The atmosphere became tensed. Isaac was very scared, with his head bowed in shame as he knelt in front of the king. He prayed silently in his heart that the king should spare him. The elders from Kapuso Kingdom had mixed feelings. They felt sorry for Isaac, but knew that they didn't have the power to save him at that point. The king finally cleared his throat after minutes of silence. "Isaac, I am very disappointed and angry with you," he began. "How could you toy with a man of my status in that manner? You had the guts to walk into the great palace and claim to be a prince, when you are not even from a royal family at all. How dare you?" thundered King Mutakatifu in fury. Isaac shivered and kept pleading for mercy. "Have mercy on me, O king," he sobbed. "Everything you have here in Obogo Kingdom, I gave you. You haven't spent money on anything since you came. So where are the stolen items?" the king asked. "Everything I stole is still intact as I came with it. I didn't touch it as I have never had a need for it since I came," replied Isaac. "Guards, go with him to his hut and retrieve the stolen items," ordered the king. Isaac produced the stolen items, acknowledging his crime. The king ordered that the items be handed over to the elders. Then he said, "Isaac, I forgive you for everything you did. I hold nothing against you, especially after the pathetic story about your parents that you shared with us, which was why you did what you did. To you, Isaac, and to everyone here today, note that taking revenge leads to more harm than good. It is best to focus on constructive ways to address any issues or grievances you may have." Having said that, he decreed that Isaac must face judgment in Kapuso village for his crimes. So, he allowed the elders and guards from Kapuso village to take him away. As Isaac was taken away, the weight of his actions sank in and he realized the gravity of his deeds. It is said that bad news travels fast. Words of the event in the palace spread like wildfire. Soon, it became the most talked about topic in the village. Before long, the news reached Sandra, the daughter of the wealthiest man in Obogu Kingdom and Isaac's beloved girlfriend. Shocked and devastated, she fainted upon hearing the news. Maria, her mother, cried for help, and her domestic workers all gathered and were able to help her. Maria was still not satisfied with the way her daughter was looking. She thought Sandra looked too pale, so a medicine man was summoned. The medicine man examined her and prescribed some herbs for her. She needs all the rest she can get. Please, she doesn't need any strenuous activities now, especially not in her condition. Looking confused, Maria, her mother, asked, "What condition are you talking about?" "Do you mean to tell me that you don't know that your daughter is pregnant?" asked the medicine man, looking surprised. Sandra's eyes widened. She burst into tears. "What have I gotten myself into? I didn't see this coming. How do I even move around this village? I have boasted to everyone that I was going to be the next queen," she said as she cried bitterly. Maria, her mother, was thrown off balance. "Sandra, you slept with a man who has not paid your bride price? Why? Because you thought he was the prince?" "Even at that, it is wrong," her mother said, feeling very disappointed. Sandra's pregnancy news made it out through one of the domestic staff. While some people felt sorry for Sandra, others were happy how things played out. It serves her right. That is where her arrogance has led her. I don't even feel sorry for her one bit. She rejected a noble man like me because of my financial status. Now, she ended up with not just a poor man, but a palace errand boy and a thief at that, said the hunter's son, whom Sandra once turned down. Chipego ran to Sandra's house as soon as she heard what happened in the palace. She saw her friends dead and felt very sorry for her. "I should have listened to you, Chipego," said Sandra as she continued to cry like a baby and refused to be consoled. Tears streamed down Sandra's cheeks, each drop a proof to the pain she felt. How could Miss is it Isaac, deceive her so effortlessly? She had trusted him with her heart, believing the sincerity of his affection. Now, all she felt was a profound sense of loss and disappointment, she thought. "Chipego, you warned me, but I did not listen. Now, to make matters worse, I am pregnant. This is just too much for me to bear," Sandra said as she continued crying. "Sandra," Chipego whispered softly, her voice filled with empathy, "please don't be too hard on yourself. I can't bear to see you cry like this." She reached out gently and enveloped Sandra in a warm embrace, offering silent solace in her time of need. After a while, as Sandra's tears began to subside, Chipego spoke words of comfort and encouragement. "You are strong, Sandra. I know you will pull through this and everything will be alright," she said, her voice filled with conviction. Sandra nodded, finding solace in Chipego's words. "Thank you, Chipego," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I may have lost a false prince, but in you I have found a true friend." "Congratulations, Chipego. Your kind heart has paid off. I am really happy for you. I think I should start addressing you as the queen," Sandra said, trying to force a smile. "Now I realize that treating others with respect and kindness goes a long way in building positive relationships," she added. "See how your daughter brought us shame. Pregnant outside marriage, how am I supposed to move in the kingdom? A man as loved and respected like me. I can't believe this is happening to me." Sikufele told his wife Maria, sounding very disappointed. "I think we have our share of the blame. We didn't do well as parents. We overlooked her actions. We never corrected her when she was wrong. We overpampered her. She has always had her way. I believe I failed as a mother," replied Maria. "She is all we have. We have to fix this mess. She is still our daughter, regardless of what has happened. We should be thinking of a solution now," Maria added as she left her husband alone with his thoughts. Chipego went straight to the palace after she left Sandra's house. She told the guards she was sent there to see the prince. The prince was summoned. Chipego watched the prince as he approached her. He looked even more handsome, she thought. are you, my love?" asked the real Prince Misozi, smiling. "You didn't have to lie to me." Chipego poured out her heart, expressing her hurt and disappointment at his deception. With sincerity in his eyes, Prince Misozi explained his reasons for pretending to be a commoner. He spoke of his desire to find genuine love untouched by his royal status, and expressed his genuine gratitude for Chipego's unconditional affection. "I did what I had to do for my sake and for the sake of the future kingdom. I need a good, humble, and kind-hearted woman as queen. A woman who will treat everybody with respect regardless of their status and financial strength. I disguised myself as a humble carpenter and mingled among the common folks in search of true love. I am happy I did. I got the best of them all." Taking her hands in his, he said, "Chipego, waking up every day with you by my side is the greatest gift I could ever ask for. With you by my side as queen, I know the future is bright for this great kingdom," Prince Misozi said, looking at her with so much love. Touched by his honesty, Chipego's anger melted away, replaced by a profound understanding and compassion. She confessed her love for him, declaring her willingness to stand by his side regardless of his title or wealth. In a tender embrace, Prince Misozi and Chipego sealed their love, promising to cherish each other for eternity. And so, the prince found his true love in the heart of the humble Chipego, proving that love knows no boundaries of status or wealth. Meanwhile, Isaac was locked up by the king immediately he arrived in Kapuso village. "I will pass my judgment on the next market day," said the king. On the other hand, Sandra was pregnant and felt ashamed to leave the house. But what happened next shocked everyone. This is where part 1 of this story ends. So I want you guys to tell me first of all what you've learned from this story, the best lessons. Please write them down in the comment section. And I really need to know that you really enjoy the story. I want you to go in the comment section and you can say whatever it is that you want to say. And please make sure you like the video. If you really love this story, I'm sure you'd also want other people to watch it. So the only way other people can watch this story is if you like it, watch the full story, and also subscribe to the channel. I will really appreciate. So tell me what you've learned in the story and comment something. Very early on the next Kapuso market day, King Mupafu ordered that Isaac be brought before him. His guards did as he instructed. Isaac was brought out, looking so pale and fragile. The king sat on his throne, cleared his throat, and began to speak. "Isaac, before I pass my verdict, let me ask you, why did you do what you did?" he asked, looking sternly at Isaac. "I am giving you the chance to speak because you were brought back here with the exact money and items that you stole. I would have just ordered that you be beheaded for daring the great king of Kapuso kingdom," said the king. Facing King Mupafu on the grand throne, Isaac trembled with fear, knowing the gravity of his offense. "I am really sorry, my king." He revealed the true motive behind his deeds and the desire to avenge the tragic fate of his parents. King Mupafu listened intently to Isaac's words. His expression changed from the angry man to a calm one. He was touched by Isaac's words. The whole place became silent after Isaac ended his speech. With a stern expression, the king spoke, his voice echoing with authority. "Isaac, I owe you, nor your late parents, nothing. When your father was with me, I paid him for the services he rendered. Was I supposed to continue caring for you and your mother after his demise? You were only feeling entitled. I owed you absolutely nothing. If I chose to help you, that would have been out of my own generosity." The king acknowledged Isaac's pain but rebuked his misguided actions, emphasizing that justice could not be achieved through unlawful means. "Even if I had wronged you and you wanted justice, Isaac, your grievances should have been aired before me, not hidden behind the veil of deceit and theft. Your mind was filled with evil, the reason you chose the path of darkness," the king declared. "Having said that, here is my judgment. Isaac, you are hereby banished from Kaposo Kingdom. Depart and never return, because if you do, you will face severe consequences, the king decreed. Isaac was led by guards and 2 elders to the boundary of Kaposo village, and he was asked to leave. One of the elders, the one who led the delegates to Obogo village, squeezed a few shillings into his hands and gave him a piece of cloth to cover himself from the cold. He also gave him few ankara wrapped in a leaf. Eat it while it's still hot. You will need this to strengthen you as you go. May the gods be with you, the man added. With a heavy heart and tears in his eyes, Isaac thanked the chief and left the kingdom that had once been his home. Left all by himself, Isaac began to walk as fast as his legs could carry him. I have to see Sandra. I owe her a lot of explanation, he thought to himself as he began to devour the food. He didn't realize how hungry he was. As he got closer to Obogo village, he became afraid. I don't want to get into trouble again, he thought. He wanted to turn back, but his desire to see Sandra was stronger. So he used the piece of cloth given by him to the chief to cover his head. Then he hid somewhere till it was evening. When he was sure that it was safe enough, he came out of his hiding and walked briskly to Sandra's house. He got to Sikufele's home and told the domestic worker that he wanted to see Sandra. Sandra came out looking very weak, accompanied by her mother. Immediately she recognized Isaac. She turned and was about to go back, but he quickly rushed to her and held her back. Get your hands off me, you liar, Sandra yelled at him. How am I even sure that there isn't more that I have heard? She asked, looking irritated. Sandra, I am really sorry for everything. You have every reason to be angry with me, and if you decide that you don't want me around you anymore, I would respect it and go far away from you. It is true that I stole from the king of Kaposo and ran all the way here. It is true that I lied about my identity, but one thing I never lied to you about is the love I profess to you. I truly love you, Sandra, and I am ready to do all it would take to win you back. If you give me the chance, Isaac pleaded. I don't ever want to see you again, Sandra said and went into the compound without looking back. Isaac waited for a while, then he had to turn back and was about to leave. Come with me, Isaac. We need to talk, said Maria, Sandra's mother. Isaac therefore followed her quietly. Maria led Isaac into the compound and straight to a shed where Sikufele, her husband, was relaxing. As soon as they approached him, Isaac went flat on the ground, laying down on his stomach. He greeted, "Good evening, great cocoa merchant of Obogo village." "Greetings, young man," Sikufele replied. "Who are you and how may I help you?" Sikufele asked. "He is Isaac, the assumed prince and father of your unborn grandchild," Maria said. Still lying on the floor, Isaac looked up in shock. "What did you just say, Mama? Is Sandra pregnant?" he asked. "Yes, Sandra is pregnant. You are going to be a father," replied Maria, while staring at her husband to see his reaction. "So, you are the young man that got my daughter pregnant without a proper marriage, right? So, because of you now, I have been reduced to an object of ridicule. To make matters worse, you are a thief and a liar," said Sikufele, anger evident in his tone. "Baba Sandra," Maria said, "that's too harsh. The young man has been through a lot already. Please don't be too hard on him. The deed has been done. What we need now is a solution." "Isaac, get up and sit down," Maria said. "I would rather remain like this, Mama. Please let me remain like this. I am truly sorry for every pain I might have caused this noble family. Please forgive me," he pleaded as he began to sob. "Please help me beg Sandra. I truly love her. I have never loved any woman in my life. She is my first. I don't want to lose her. I promise to do what it takes to make her happy. Isaac, get up, said Sikufele. How did it go with you at Kapuswe village? Isaac got up and stood in front of them with his head bowed down. I was banished from Kapuswe kingdom. I was asked never to return, else I faced the consequences, he told them. I hope you know that you can't stay here either. Nobody will want to associate with you, especially after what happened. So, what do you intend to do now? Sikufele asked him. I guess I will have to look for another village and start my life afresh. But the most important thing to me now is your daughter. Please help me beg her, Isaac said, looking up for the first time. I can't imagine life without her. Don't worry about her. I will talk to her. I am her mother, so she should listen to me, said Baria as she got up and left the two men to discuss. Maria entered Sandra's hut and found her crying again. She walked up to her and seated beside her. She enveloped her in a warm embrace. It's okay, my child. Please wipe your tears away. You have cried enough, she began. Sandra, that young man out there genuinely loves you. Looking at him speak, I am more convinced that you both were meant to be. The gods are wise. He was directed here by the gods to meet you. That is why, despite all that has happened, he will still come out of the mess he found himself in. I am your mother, and I would not push you into danger. That man loves you. Please don't push him away. Besides, you are pregnant already. Do you want to raise a child without a father? That will not be your portion. Please, my child, forgive him, she pleaded. I will go out now and ask him to come in. Both of you should settle. It's not like you have a choice. His seed is growing inside of you. Sandra continued crying without saying a word to her mother. Maria left her and returned a few minutes later with Isaac following her. I will leave you two alone now. I need to attend to some things, she said and left. Isaac stood for a while as he watched Sandra struggling to compose herself. My love, it breaks my heart to know that I am the reason for those tears. Please give me a second chance and I will make sure you never shed tears again. Sandra stood up and moved close to him. I hate you, Isaac. You fooled me. She broke down in tears again. Isaac quickly held her in a warm embrace. All I am asking is that another chance, and I will prove to you that I can be that man you dreamed of, he said. Isaac was about to go down on his knees, but Sandra stopped him. Don't kneel for me, she said. Life has taught me a lesson I will live with for the rest of my life. Never look down on anyone. Never, regardless of status or class. Treat everyone with respect and kindness. I hate to admit that I still have a soft spot for you, despite all that has happened. Looking straight into his eyes, she said, From the depths of my heart, I forgive you. They hugged each other. After some minutes, they went out to meet Sandra's parents. We are ready to start afresh, Sandra said, smiling for the first time since the incident. Her parents were happy. By next week, we will have a private marriage ceremony for both of you here, after which both of you will relocate to my wife's village to begin a new life, Sikufele said. A week later, Sandra's traditional ceremony to Isaac took place at Sikufele's compound. It was a very private ceremony. The event was attended by only a handful of close family members and Sandra's dearest friend, Chupego, with her parents. Isaac, being an orphan who had been banished from his village, Kapuswe, had no family or friends in attendance. Immediately Sandra was led into a ceremony. Despite the presence of loved ones, she looked around and burst into tears. Sandra couldn't shake the feeling of discontent. This wasn't the grand celebration she had always dreamed of for her special day. I can't believe I am the one getting married like this. I had always wanted my marriage to be the talk of the town, but here I am, getting married as if I am committing a crime, she thought to herself. The couple exchanged vows, and Sikufele and his wife Maria prayed for them, and other traditional marriage rites followed. The air was thick and there was sounds of distant drum beats, but to Sandra, it felt as though something important was missing. As the ceremony concluded and the guests departed, Sandra couldn't hide her disappointment. She longed for a celebration filled with laughter, music, and dancing under the bright sky. But instead, she found herself facing the reality of a marriage that had begun in solemnity rather than joy. Chipego noticed her friend's unhappy mood and went to meet her. Giving her a reassuring hug, she said, "Everything will be fine, Sandra. Be happy. Today is your day." "You are a true friend, Chipego. I wish every friend could be like you. You tolerated my excuses. You never judged me for once. Your kind is rare. I will miss you," Sandra said as tears began to well up in her eyes. "What do you mean by you will miss me?" Chipego asked, looking curious. "My husband and I will be relocating to Safari Village, my maternal home. We can't stay here. People will laugh at us, especially my husband, and honestly, I don't want that. My father has made arrangements for us to live at dawn. I wish you and Prince Misozi a happy marriage and a successful reign. Till our paths cross again, I would say bye for now." Chipego could not believe her ears. "Sandra, this will be really hard for me. I will miss you. Go well, my dear friend," Chipego said, wiping a tear from her eyes. That evening, Sikufele, Sandra's father, called both Sandra and her husband into his chamber and had a meeting with them. "Congratulations to both of you," he began. "May the gods bless your marriage." "Amen," chorused Sandra and her husband. "Now that the marriage ceremony is over, my workers have packed your belongings. I have also asked them to pack foodstuff enough for you to last for some time before you settle down at Safari Village. We have sent word to your uncle by the name of Kasoko, and he has prepared a new hut for the both of you," Sikufele continued. "Isaac, Sandra is the only child I have. Make sure you take very good care of her." With a warm smile, he handed them a hug. With a warm smile, he handed them a huge sum of money as a gesture intended to help them start their new life together. "I have also acquired a piece of land for you, Isaac. Start a farm there. 2 of my workers will go with you to put you through about 2 weeks before they return. You can continue from there." They arrived at Safari Village late in the evening. I am old and going to join my sisters. Showed them their hut. It was a very spacious hut. My meat and Sandra arranged the luggage they had come with. While Kasoko's wife made them a dinner of roasted yam and palm oil. "Thank you so much, Baba," Isaac replied as he prostrated. "Sandra is in safe hands. I promise you, together we will make you proud," he said. Encouraged by his support, Sandra and Isaac set out for Safari Village, leaving behind the familiarity of their home to embark on a journey into the unknown. With determination in their hearts and dreams of a brighter future ahead, they embraced the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that their love would guide them through every twist and turn of their journey. They arrived at Safari Village very late in the evening. Her uncle, Kasoko, showed them their hut. It was a very spacious hut. Sandra arranged the luggage they had come with. Wow! Kasoko's wife made them very delicious dinner. They went to sleep that night happy, knowing that the future for both of them was bright. "Tomorrow another chapter of our lives begin," said Isaac as he hugged his beautiful wife. 3 days later, after Isaac and Sandra left for Obogo Kingdom Prince Misozi and two chiefs accompanied by palace guards visited Chipego's parents' house with different gifts to ask for Chipego's hand in marriage. Without hesitation, Chipego's father gave his consent and the date was fixed for their marriage ceremony. On the set date of their marriage, the whole village gathered at Sikufele's compound for the much anticipated ceremony. Adorned in traditional attire, embroidered with beads and elaborate patterns, Chipego was ushered into her own ceremony, her eyes reflecting the joy of the moment. "She is such a beautiful bride," the crowd murmured among themselves. Prince Misozi, regal in his royal garments, stood tall, his gaze fixed on his beloved bride with unwavering affection. Chipego and Prince Misozi, the heir to the throne, stood before their families and the entire kingdom to exchange vows of eternal love and devotion. The couple exchanged heartfelt vows, promising to support each other through life's trials and triumphs. The air was filled with a sweet scent, enhancing the enchanting atmosphere of the occasion. As the vows were sealed with a tender hug, cheers erupted from the crowd, echoing through the peaceful scene. Musicians played joyful melodies, and dancers swayed to the rhythm of the drums, celebrating the union of two souls destined to be together. Following the ceremony, a lavish feast awaited the guests, featuring different delicious dishes prepared by the finest chefs in the kingdom. Everyone present ate to their satisfaction and even had some to take home. Throughout the evening, heartfelt toasts were raised to the newlyweds, honoring their love and wishing them a lifetime of happiness. Chipego and Prince Misozi danced beneath the open sky, their hearts overflowing with love and gratitude for each other and for the blessing of their union in the mystical land of Obogo village. 5 years after Sandra and Isaac relocated to Safari Village, the great meat merchant King Sikufele passed. As agreed, Sandra and Isaac relocated back to Obogo land with their 3 children, twin boys and a girl. Sandra was so happy to be reunited with her friend Chipego, who by then had 2 children, a boy and a girl. They spent time together, catching up on old times. They shared their marital experiences and made sure their children became friends. Chipego, my queen, Sandra addressed her friend. Life has taught me that humility is one essential ingredient of fostering meaningful relationships. Humility helps us to learn from others and continuously strive to be a better version of ourselves. But pride and arrogance only leads to distraction. I am glad that the gods gave me a second chance to right my wrongs. My life would have been a mess by now, Sandra told Chipego. Chipego looked at her in amazement. So my own Sandra has now become an advocate for humility? Life is indeed unpredictable. I am happy for you, my dear friend, she said. Isaac took over Sikufele's farm and meat business. He worked very hard and became even more successful than Sikufele was. A year after their return, the great king of Obogo Kingdom joined his ancestors and Prince Misozi was crowned king. He ruled the people with love and kindness. With Chipego by his side and the knowledge he had acquired from the white man's land, the land of Obogo developed rapidly and became the center of attraction among other neighboring villages. His reign brought so much peace and harmony among the people. Queen Chipego, being a very compassionate woman, always listened to the concerns and worries of the people and offered wise counsel as well as rendering help in the times of need. Chipego and Sandra, the 2 jolly friends, were happy in their individual marriages. They lived happily ever after. This is the end of the story. I hope you really enjoyed. So after you connect part 1 and part 2, I want you to give me the final lesson that you have learned from this beautiful story. Personally, the first thing and the most important thing that I've learned from this story is humility. Be humble and you are going to be found on high tables. Be humble and life will flow very peacefully for you. Arrogance will not take you anywhere. If anything, it is going to destroy you. So please, if you want me to drop the next story, which is as interesting, or should I say even more interesting than this one, I want you to comment next story in the comment section. Please, I want you to say something and I will definitely drop another beautiful story.